Hey there, fellow streakers. It's another day and another great day for streaking. We have with us a fantastic guest. This guest is a certified financial planner and has helped thousands of families, including her own, save millions of dollars on college. She is the managing partner of Independent Progressive Advisors, a fee-only financial advisor, and the author of the College Financial Lady blog. Her husband, Bob, her and her husband live in Portland, Oregon, and they're twins. That's right, you heard it correctly. Twins are away from home attending college. Let's welcome to the Streaking Show Ann Garcia, and let's start streaking.
Hi, Ann. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I don't know if I mentioned, but yesterday was my 300th streak day of 10,000 steps.
Really?
Woo, that is so
That's
fantastic. We love hearing streakers.
That's so great. That's awesome. 300 days. That's great. And in the heat that you've been having, like we've been having, that's great getting all those steps in.
Some of them have been at night.
Cool. Yes. So, Ann, we wanted to start off just by asking you a little bit about your background. Like, where does the passion for financial planning coming, and how did it lead to the writing of this book?
Well, so I've been a financial advisor for about 12 years, and I spent my early career working in technology and found I really enjoyed having conversations about money. And when my kids were born, I knew I didn't want to be doing the hours and the workload of tech, and so I decided to become a certified financial planner.
Okay.
And I noticed early on in my career as an advisor that lots and lots of families were coming in with questions about how they were going to pay for college. And another big group was coming in with questions about how they were going to manage their student loans. And I found that not a lot of people in our profession were talking about college. It was much more focused on retirement. And between that and having my own kids who I intended to get through college, I thought this is something I should know more about. And I started doing some research on it and found that it led to some really, really great conversations with clients about what was really important to them in their time on earth, raising their families, having a lifestyle that they want, setting their kids up for success. And I also found that I was answering the same questions again and again and again. So I started writing them down in a blog, and one thing led to another. And suddenly I said, you know what, this blog is about as long as a book. And so
we should turn it into a book.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was fascinated to realize, because I have older children and younger children. So I have been talking to my oldest daughter a lot, and she's already starting to think about planning college for her kids. And she doesn't have any yet. She's actually currently still in law school, but they've talked extensively about what they want to do. And I was thinking about how much I didn't think about that when I had kids, when I was her age. And I realized when I was reading the first part of your book, when you mentioned some statistics that like in 1980, the annual tuition was in the $800 annually. Mm-hmm. And that by 1990, it had only gone up to about $1,600. But then in the last 30 years, the average annual tuition is closer to the 16,000, 17,000s. And that, so looking at that and realizing that in my daughter's lifetime, college tuition fees have, I think you stated, gone up like at public universities, 500%.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that's a huge shift in the way that parents were thinking about college as compared to kids that are starting to have children now and they're thinking about college.
Yeah. And it's a lot like, for our generation, our parents didn't think a lot about retirement because they had pensions and that was all taken care of, but we've had to self-finance all of that. So, so we've been pretty well versed in saving for retirement in the same way that I think kids, they're not kids anymore. They're young adults.
I know.
That's it, isn't it?
Have had that exposure to the high cost of college and are starting to think about that for their own families a little earlier than
what they used to be. Yeah, I agree.
As you look at one of the things that I saw is intentionality in everything. It seems that I mean, in all the worksheets and all the questions, it's about being intentional from the time they're in kindergarten to look at college. And you give a lot of the stats as to why it's important to go to college. But walk us through just a little bit about that intentionality and what is it that, parents, what are some of the highlights as parents go from kindergarten all the way through a senior in high school? What are some of those highlights they need to be looking at?
Yeah, so I think one of the really important things for families to remember is the sooner you start, the more choices you have. You're in a if you start planning for college when your child is younger, number one, you don't have to save as much because your savings will do more of the work. Number two, you have a better opportunity to shape their thinking about college so that it's driven more by your family's values than by their friends' choices.
That's good. Yeah.
um, but really, I'd say, high level, the sooner you start to save, the more savings you have, the more savings you have, the more choices you have. The sooner you start to talk about college, the more opportunities you have to frame their thinking about it than to have their friends frame their thinking about it. And so and that's not to say that it matters what preschool they go to, because that's what's going to get them into Harvard. It doesn't. And frankly, it doesn't matter if they go to Harvard or San Jose State. um, but the sooner, having good positive conversations around what your expectations of them are, having the parents be on the same page as far as what they're willing to contribute, what their aspirations for their kids are. And that doesn't mean that you have to agree on everything, but that does mean that, when your kids are young, that's a great time to have a conversation between the parents about what your goals and aspirations are, what pathways you think should be open to them, what level you're willing to fund their college, because college is really not something that kids can bootstrap themselves. It has to be a whole family effort.
Yeah.
When kids are young, I think introducing, for parents who intend for their kids to go to college, introducing the concept of college in age appropriate ways. And that does not mean, as a 5-year-old, hey, study your math. It means talking about things like, hey, I never understood thunderstorms until I took a meteorology class in college and it was really fun. Or my friend Jamie and we met in college and we go back all this way. And I made so many great friends while I was there. Just introducing that as a part of life that you value and something that you would like to have be available to them. I think when kids get closer to college, introducing the concept of money into it. And you can do that as you see their friends' older siblings going off to college. You can do that by looking at scholarship opportunities that are available at your in-state colleges. You can do that, as they get further on in the process, by introducing what your college budget looks like and what level of support and skin in the game that you think they should have. I mean, that's on the conversation side. On the financial side, I think it's so important to just be, disciplined and intentional in your savings process. Whatever amount you are able to do it, set it and forget it. Open a 529, set up an automatic monthly contribution to it. Kids whose families have saved for college in any amount enroll and graduate from college at higher rates than those that don't. And we could argue cause and effect on those, but it's just a fact. I think a good strategy for parents, because when you start all this and, you have a newborn and you've got diapers and you've got childcare and you've got bajillions of other expenses, you're probably in the most expensive phase of your life, but for college.
Right.
Right.
So to say, let's carve out some additional dollars can be a little bit tough, but if you can find $10 a month in your budget that can go into a 529, you'll be very well served by that. So much of your life, of your family life, something's in triage mode and it's not your college savings.
Yeah.
The sooner you can automate that, the better. I
Yeah.
also think a great practice is every year on your kid's birthday, you're probably thinking about what a great year it was, how you're going to celebrate that and recognize it. It's also a great time to think, what does their future self look like? And who am I
Mhm.
trying to, who am I trying to shape and create here? And can I carve out another $5, $10, $20 in my budget every month to increase their 529
Yeah.
contribution?
Talk to us just a little bit. So I've had several questions. Several of the
Sure.
things that you've said have intrigued me. One of the things, so first of all, with your twins, when did you start talking with them? Because you were in tech industry when they were born, right? And then you moved over into financial planning. So had you already started talking to them about it, or was it when you got into financial planning that you're like, you know what, I probably need to be a little bit more intentional? And how did you start that process?
Yeah. And I probably overused the word intentional because I was a little bit haphazard myself.
And we all
So
are to some
I'm
point,
sharing life
right?
lessons as well.
Right.
um, when my kids were little, one of their favorite things to do. So I went to Berkeley, and the football stadium before it was remodeled was a total dump. And the nice thing about it being a total dump was that it was open to the public all the time. Whenever we went there, one of their favorite things was you could just walk into the stadium and walk around, and they thought that was so cool. And that was like college to them, was just going to all these places and seeing all this fun stuff. And I think that really stuck in my son's head, that like college equals football games equals big crowds of people and fun Saturdays with your friends. Um and so we did a lot of, we would go visit colleges, and then we went to Michigan where my husband went, and my kids were shocked that you couldn't just like walk into the football stadium whenever you wanted.
Wait, it's locked? What's
Wait.
with that?
They keep people out. I'm like, well, because it's nice there.
Yeah.
So we sort of, unintentionally introduced them to what colleges were like, and they started seeing all these different areas. When they were in middle school, it was in the financial crisis, and our school district had 5 furlough days, and
Oh,
so
wow.
we got together as a group of parents and organized field trips for the kids on the furlough days. And one of the moms was a professor at one of our local colleges, and so she organized for the kids to come to college for a day. And she gave them a homework assignment, they came to class, they got a campus tour, they saw, and it's a really different college environment than anything that they had seen from us, because we had taken them to two gigantic public
Right.
colleges, and this was a local private college where they were in a small classroom, with the college kids and the professor, and going and having actually good food. They have good food at college. um, and so so we had this sort of haphazard start of them looking at colleges, and and they came back from that and they were talking about it, and I realized at that point I'd always been really gung-ho on you can go anywhere you want, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, they're starting to get interested in this stuff. I need to put some
Mhm.
guardrails on here, because
Right.
we're not paying for them to go to Berkeley or Michigan, and we're probably not paying for them to go to University of Portland, which is where they had where they had
Yes.
gone to visit. And I was like, okay, we need to start talking about this, and talking about how how much college costs, and what their options are going to be. And I was like, and I don't want to be the bad guy saying you can't go there. I want to be someone who I want to be a parent who gives them some agency over the college process, but within some limits.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we started talking about what different schools cost, and how much we would have to save for them to be able to go to some of these places. And it led to a conversation about hey, there are good choices at a lot of different price points. And we started looking up what it would cost them to go to University of Oregon or Oregon State compared with Berkeley or Michigan, and would that produce a better outcome for them or a different outcome. And one of the things that I kept seeing in my business every day was the thing that really held people back was student loans. Not where they went to college, but
How much debt they had incurred.
did they have the
Yeah.
financial flexibility as an adult to choose where they lived, what career they pursued, whether they went to grad school or not, or were they tethered to either living with their parents or only having a high paying career that may or may not be what they wanted to do,
Right.
because they had this monthly nut to crack of paying for their student loans.
Yeah.
That's so great that you had that through your profession, you were able to see a little bit of ahead of where your kids would be in a couple years based on decisions. And as I was reading your book, one of my favorite things was that section where you had conversations, where there's a chapter in it where you break it down and say, at this age group, talk about these kinds of things. At this age group, you can talk about these kinds of things. And I just loved that what you said, you created this family culture around how you feel about college and then opened up the opportunity for there to be dialogue, which I think is a fantastic opportunity to get to know your kids better too, to be able to be like, well, what are you interested in, and what things did I have envisioned for you, and what things do you have envisioned for yourself, and opening up that dialogue and that conversation. So that was one of my favorite things, because when you pick up a book that says how to pay for college, you're expecting it to be all facts and figures and numbers and how to apply for this scholarship and how to find this grant. And I loved that it started off with a discussion about, let's talk about why college is even important, and let's talk about talking about college, which I thought was such a great way to open up the idea of thinking about paying for your kids' college by thinking about, what are you interested in and why are we doing this? Sometimes I think we get so caught up in, we have to do this and the stress of it, that we don't take the time to stop and be like, okay, but why are we doing this? And you really talk about that a lot, and I appreciated that. The other thing that I wanted to, when we were talking about intentionality, and the thing that I loved that you said, and you say it throughout the book as well, is wherever you are now, you can start. I'm starting with telling you about, before your kids are born or when they're babies, these are things you can do. But if you're already past that stage, you can still start now. And the thing that I loved about it is the focus on not so much the amount, but if you start now, it creates a mindset. And that's so much of what I feel happens in streaking, is that by starting with this small thing, and we phrase it laughably small so that you have no excuse to not do it, you're really creating a mindset. And I saw that a lot throughout your book of this, just create a mindset of being able to save for college, and you'll do more than you think you will when you than what you would do if you had to have this big number that you had to save all the time. And so I really liked that part of it.
It's such a great point, and thank you for bringing that up, because I kept thinking as I was looking at your material, I was like, there's so much consistency between our philosophies in this, that it really is about taking small steps that create future big wins.
Exactly. And just creating that focusing on the input, and the output will take care of itself much more easier than if you're focusing on the output. The output sometimes is daunting, especially now when we are looking at these numbers and the amount of money that you have to save, in addition to all the things you're paying for children along the way. And so I love that your process is focus on the input. Even a small amount of input is going to make a difference. And the more you focus on that input, I think the more motivated we are to continue that input and increase that input as time goes, because we're succeeding.
Yeah, well, and I think too, and you raise a great point, when you have a goal, it's not the goal, it's the steps you take to achieve the goal that
Yep.
make you successful. And so it's easy to say, I want my kids to go to college, but unless you build the steps along the way, unless you build that path by taking all those steps and by being intentional, and whether it's, running a marathon, paying for your kids' college, saving for retirement. I mean, there are so many things that we do or that we intend to do that unless we create that pathway, it's not going to happen, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
outcome is going to look really, 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 really different.
Different.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So to your point, so for streakers, as you guys are listening out there, a couple of streaks that just came to mind while Anne was talking is one, save at least, $5 a month or $5 a week and put that in it. And I want to talk to you about a 529. Not everyone knows what a 529 is, so we'll make sure and talk about that. But start a streak to see how many weeks in a row you can put $1, $5, $10, whatever your income allows for in a savings account. Now, the other thing that you brought up, Anne, is you can have that automatically withdrawn so that you don't even have to think about it. And that's one of the differences between a habit and a streak. Is a habit is automatic. And that is, you can set up something automatic with technology, and a streak is intentional. I'm going to intentionally do this for daily, weekly, or monthly, and I have a streak to see how many days in a row or how many weeks in a row I can make this happen. And as you look at what Anne's doing here with how to pay for college, it really is about the consecutiveness of the savings. So every single week, every single month, I'm putting away a small amount so that that will allow me for the future outcome of going to the school that is the right school for us. And that was another thing that I looked at as well. It's not which school, it's why are you going to college, and then figure out what college matches the why behind that. So before we get to that question, but tell us what a 529 is and how people can get into a 529.
Yeah, so a 529 is a college savings account that has some specific tax advantages. So 529s are run by the states primarily. So every state has their own. And for most people, choosing your own state's plan is the best way to go because states offer some tax benefits as well. With a 529, you set up a dedicated savings account for your child's college. So you're the account owner, they're the beneficiary, and the dollars are available to pay for college. So you make contributions and then you choose how it's going to be invested. It's a lot like your 401k where you have a set menu of choices, one of which is an age-based option that will allocate your investments in a way that minimizes the risk of losing a whole bunch of money right before they go to college. The great thing about 529s, well, several things. One is that all of the growth in the account is tax-free as long as it's used for college, and so that results in a much bigger pool of dollars available to you than other savings amounts. It's probably about somewhere between a quarter and a third more net of taxes, depending on when you started to save. Many states also give you a tax benefit for your contributions to the account. So like here in Oregon, you get a tax credit of up to $300. Other states are far more generous than that. So it can result in a lot of additional savings too. But one of the sort of the secret sauce of 529s compared with just like investing in a brokerage account and taking the money out is you don't report the growth in the account as income on the financial aid forms when you take the money out. So
Oh, really?
So it's much, much better for financial aid than other accounts. I know a lot of families say, well, my kids are young. I'm not sure if they're going to go to college. I'm not sure if this is the right way, if this is the right way to save. Chances are it is the right way to save because 529s are really, really flexible. So in addition to using them for college, many states allow you to use them for private K-12 expenses. You can use them for apprenticeship programs. You can use them for community college. So there are lots and lots of ways to use them. And then if you're a parent of multiple children and one of your children doesn't go to college, you could just change the beneficiary on that account to a different child. I like 529s because I like for families to have some dedicated college savings. I like the intentionality of setting up that account and having it and having it saved. And, to your point about streaking, the thing that I like is to me, a streak is a commitment.
Mhm.
And so I've made that commitment, and now I'm thinking about how I'm going to do it, not whether I'm going to do it.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
I like
And
her.
so if
I know.
We
529
need to
is
have
the
her on
how I'm
more
going to
often.
do it.
Yes, exactly. And that's what, and again, it's that this is what I'm going to do. And now I'm figuring out how and when I'm going to do it, not constantly asking that question of if I'm going to do it, which really does free up something we don't talk about a ton, but it frees up a lot of mind share. You've made that decision already, and now you're going forward. And then when something comes that kind of bumps up against that, you're not revisiting the decision. You're spending that mind share saying, okay, how am I going to overcome this hurdle, rather than looking at it and saying, well, should I do this? Should I not? And I think that really allows you to continue moving forward through times that maybe are a little more bumpy than other times, and maybe through times that are more fruitful than other times, so that you're being more focused and intentional to doing what you want truly with your money.
Yeah.
So
And I think there's so much, so much fumbling around trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. You know what? The second best way that's executed is better than the best way that still remains an idea because you haven't figured out what it
yes.
is.
Okay, that is so good. That is a life lesson I wished I had learned so much earlier, and that I feel like sometimes I still struggle with. But this idea of not doing something because you want to find the perfect way to do it, and you're waiting and I'm going to find it. But the truth is, there's probably not a perfect way that's going to solve all of your problems. So just start. Just start right now.
Yep.
And you'll figure it out along the way. And you'll get better at it as you go. But not if you're constantly analyzing and thinking, should I do it? How should I do it? Where's that perfect way? So that's really great. I love that. The second best way is always better than the first way that you're just continuing to analyze.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, and that's why in my book, I really try to just map out the steps and give you a pathway, because I see so many people who are like, oh, my kid's 16 and we haven't started saving for college because I didn't think our 529 wasn't that great. And I was going to look around and find another one. And I just never did. And it's
I
like,
never did. Yep.
yeah, well, the second best choice was better than
Was
trying
the
to,
better.
Yeah.
than spending
So
16 years figuring out what the first best choice was.
So I'm getting started. How do I set up a 529? Do I just go to a brokerage account? I mean, is it pretty simple, or is it something that's complicated? How do you get started on it?
They're super easy. So I would say don't go to a brokerage account, even though most of, Schwab and Vanguard and all of those do offer 529s. I think the Vanguard 529 is really good, but it takes a lot of money to get it set up. So for most people, the best place to go is your state's 529. I mean, you're in Utah, that's the best 529 out there. So
Oh, great.
if you're not sure about your states, go to Utah.
Okay.
Okay.
So just Google your state name and 529, and you should be able to find it. You can open an account online. The only things you need are your own personal info and your child's personal info, and then you
Okay,
can
great.
link your bank account. Most of them will encourage you to set up a monthly standing transfer into the account. And you can go back and edit that at any point. So
Okay.
if you're not sure which 529 to use, if your state has a tax benefit, that's the right one to use. And if not, you can use the Utah plan, because that's the best one. And Utah's is called My 529.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great.
Fantastic.
And the question that I kept on going through my mind is, let's say you're a great saver, you did a great job with 529, and not all the money is used. What happens then? What's kind of after the fact? I know that's a little bit further down the road, but I haven't
Yes.
used everything in the 529. What happens now?
Yeah. So you're saying if you have extra money after your kids
Yeah.
Yeah.
done with college? Yeah. So that's a really fortunate situation to find
Yeah,
yourself.
I know it's not the case, but I was just curious about that.
And it does happen from time to time. A few things. So if you use your 529 for what's called qualified educational expenses, which are tuition, room and board, books, required fees, required supplies,
Okay, so there's a
Then
lot you can use it
there's a
for.
lot you can use it
Yeah,
on. Community
okay.
college tuition, kind of anything other than clothes and transportation to and from your college, you can
Okay.
use your 529 for. So, so you can use it for all those things. Any money that's left over, you have several options. One is you can change the beneficiary on the account so it gets used for someone else. So,
So you could gift it to a grandchild if you had leftovers down the road. Okay.
gift it to a grandchild. If your child is intending to go to graduate school, you can just save it for graduate school.
Save it for graduate school.
And use it for that. If it's all done, if you have no other way of spending it for college, you can take the money out and you'll pay taxes on the growth in the account. And then to the extent that the excess in your account is not due to scholarships, you'll also pay a 10% penalty on that withdrawal. Now, you can also plan for this. And so the withdrawal can go to the student or to the parent, and it's taxed to whoever receives it. So I had a client whose son didn't go to college and he needed a car for his job. And so he took the money from his 529. It was taxed to him at a very low rate. And he was able to buy a car for his job and not have a car payment.
Okay.
And so he was perfectly happy to do that. Another guy I heard of, his kids were done with college and there was still money in the 529. He found a college that offered a PGA Tour golf camp.
Okay.
Oh, great.
And he changed himself to the beneficiary.
Yes.
And he did a golf camp.
And
See, there's all kinds
of things. That's good to know.
That's great. That's so good.
But I mean, you can use it for adult education at a community college. You can use it for gap year programs. They're really very, very flexible accounts. So if the hurdle for you is, I don't know if my child's going to go to college, that is not a good reason
to not
save.
Because at some point in time, there'll be some educational need in someone's life. Because I was thinking that of Jamie and I, if either one of us wanted to go back and get an advanced degree, we could use it. If our kids didn't use the 529, we could use that for the advanced degree.
Absolutely. You can use it for grandkids, college savings. If, there are very, very few people who never do any additional education beyond high school.
Okay.
And so, we have a friend whose son is in an apprenticeship program to become an electrician, and he can use his 529 for that.
That's really good to know. That's really quality.
So great.
Yeah, I love that. So now let's say you're at the place where you didn't do a 529, you didn't do savings, and now we got to talk loans. I mean, that's really what we're looking at as far as loans and what loans we need to do. What does that look like? What is our makeup of loans, and how do we go about? And I know that's a very long and difficult question, but maybe you could give us some of the high level on that.
Yeah. So I think there's this big thing out there that like student loans are all terrible and you shouldn't do any. And ideally, you make college choices that allow you to not borrow, but for many families, that's just not realistic. And taking out a student loan is the difference between going to college and not going to college. And if that's you, then it's a matter of making good decisions around what you borrow. To me, a good amount to borrow, a reasonable amount to borrow, is to stick within the federal direct student loan program. And so those are federal loans. There's a cap each year on how much you can borrow. The loan is in the student's name, so they are wholly responsible for it. The cap each year, it's $5,500 their first year, $6,500 their second year, and then $7,500 for subsequent years. So a student who takes out that loan every year and graduates in 4 years will owe a little more than $27,000 when they graduate, depending on the interest rate. That translates into a monthly payment of about $325 a month for 10 years.
Okay.
The career advantages, the financial advantages of being a college graduate will more than pay for that amount of borrowing. those are very easy loans to get. And like I said, that is the one loan that the student is wholly responsible for. Any borrowing that a student does beyond that is going to require either the parent to co-sign if it's a private loan, or the parent to take out the loan themselves if they do the Parent Plus loans, that are the federal parent loans. So, part of your job as a parent, the parenting piece of paying for college, part of your job as a parent is to make sure that your student understands your financial situation before they get too deep into the college selection process,
Before they get too married to that choice that
Right.
this is the only college I can go to.
I'm going to no other one. This is the one.
Yeah. And and the thing is, there are so many great pathways for students. And I'm not saying, going to college or not going to college. Even if you say, I want my kid to go to college and I don't have a big budget to do so, there's going to community college for 2 years and transferring. There's dual enrollment programs where a student can be enrolled their first 2 years at a community college, but live on campus at a 4-year college and automatically transfer over after 2 years. There's, getting college credit while you're a high school student so that you're in and out of college in 3 years instead of 4. So
Right.
there are lots and lots of ways to compress the cost and shorten the time frame for college. It's up to you as a parent to coach your child in that direction before they get to the point of saying, look, I got into Cal Poly.
Yes.
Great.
That's where all my friends are going, and so am I.
Yes, that was our daughter. I got into the Art Institute of Chicago. That's great.
The best of times, the worst of times.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So being very intentional about what college it looks like, because as you were talking about this, what I was thinking is something you said very early in our conversation, and something you iterate in the book is you don't have to go to an Ivy League school. That's kind of the phrase that was going through my mind. Any education is a good education and will get you further down the road. It doesn't have to be a certain college.
100%. And I think there's this, we get this idea in our head that better, faster, stronger is the only way to go. And if my kid doesn't go to an Ivy League, they're not going to succeed in this world. There is so much data out there showing that is not the case. And in fact, there was a study done, the Purdue Gallup study, where they interviewed adults who considered themselves successful. They were engaged in their careers, they were happy in their lives and whatnot. And they found there were some commonalities among them that were not about public or private school, elite, highly selective versus not selective, big versus small, urban, rural. What they found was that this sense of success as an adult came down to specific experiences that they had in college. And those were things like working on a project that took a semester or longer to complete. They were, feeling like their professors cared about them, finding mentors who could help them take the steps to get towards their goals. It was being engaged in campus activities. So it was nothing about where they went to college. But if you look at the elite ranks, anywhere you look, Fortune 500 CEOs, the school that's produced the most of them is Penn State. It's not Harvard or Stanford. If you look at Rhodes Scholars every year, typically about half of them went to colleges that admit more than 50% of applicants.
Right.
So you can compete at the highest levels of our society regardless of where you went to college. It's the characteristics about you are what's going to make you successful, not the name on your diploma.
Right.
Wow.
I thought that was very intriguing too. And I love the way that stated that it's the experiences that you have at college, and looking for those more one-on-one experiences where do you feel engaged? Do you feel like you have the opportunity to have a mentor? And that was really insightful for me to look at. And as we were talking earlier, Jeff, you had mentioned a habit versus a streak, and that maybe setting up an account that automatically takes out could become something that you're like, well, the intentionality of starting that is important. But the thing that I was thinking about as you were saying that is we can set up an automatic thing that takes care of the financial aspect of it. But the intentionality of being able to communicate with your kids and revisit
That's a good
it
point.
would be
Yeah.
something that I look at and think a streak would be helpful, especially when you have super young children. That when you have lots of children, like you said, you are just taking care of the day to day. You're not thinking that far ahead. And sometimes you can't be thinking that far ahead because then I had an experience one time where I was thinking far ahead on something very specific, a project I was working on. And I ended up leaving a child in the car when I went into the store because I had completely forgotten that I had brought that child with me because I was thinking so much about this. And it was a life-changing experience because I was shocked that I could forget that child. And so when you have those small children, there's times that you're like, I need to be focusing on the here and now because that's what's keeping my child safe. Setting up a streak to have a conversation weekly or monthly about college in any form, sharing a story about my own college experience, or talking about, like you said, something I learned, or talking about how I reconnected with a friend, anything like that, setting a streak like that keeps that on your mind.
That's a
Where
great
at
point.
the end of the month, you're like, oh yeah, this is important to me. And even though I've spent the whole month changing diapers and changing my shirt because I got, thrown up on or spit up on, I still want to say, oh, college is a great thing. Let's just have a little conversation. Even though you're not thinking about it right now and your baby's not thinking about it, it sets and creates a family culture that is important to you and that you want to start having be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, here's a way to incorporate a streak into the savings aspect of it, which is every year on your child's birthday,
Mm-hmm.
be intentional about thinking
That's a
about,
great.
can I carve out a few more dollars for my monthly contribution
Right.
to my 529. So you can combine habit and streak
Habit and streak,
That
yep,
is
there.
which I
great.
think is
Love it.
great. So great.
And just one last thing to talk about is scholarships. Because we've talked about savings, we've talked about loans. There's also scholarships that are available out there, and there's ways to plan for those as well. True?
Absolutely. I mean, the scholarships are probably the biggest tool out there to get your college costs to come in line with your budget, and they are widely available. In fact, this year my son has a scholarship for playing on a video game team.
Oh, hey,
Wow.
that is great.
It's
I
a
bet
real
he
thing.
loves
Every
that
teenage
scholarship.
boy's dream, right?
Yeah, no
Yes.
kidding.
That is
Um,
amazing. How do you go about starting and looking through that? Like if you're just beginning, where do you start in the scholarship process?
Yeah, great question, because it's the wild, wild west. So I think the best place for families to start looking at scholarships is look up your in-state colleges and see what kind of scholarships they offer. The really
Okay.
nice thing about starting with your in-state colleges is most public schools offer scholarships automatically. So if you have X GPA and Y, and if applicable, Y test scores, you automatically get this scholarship.
Hmm.
Okay.
So let me take a step back and say there's three types of scholarships. There are scholarships that are awarded on the basis of need.
Okay.
There are scholarships that are awarded on the basis of merit. And then there are scholarships that are awarded by third parties. So the first two types come from either the federal government or the school themselves. The outside scholarships come from kind of anywhere. So first step in finding need-based scholarships, those are allocated based on the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Those are the two big financial aid forms.
Okay.
So a great step that families can take at any point in the process is go to the Department of Education's website, which is studentaid.gov, and then look up a tool called the Student Aid Estimator. You can punch in all your financial data in there, and it'll tell you what your expected family contribution is. Now, your expected family contribution is the amount that the federal needs analysis methodology says you should be able to pay for college each year. It's going to be a horrifying number. I'm just going to put that out there.
You're just going to say it right out.
There's no way I could come up with that. But it's a really good starting point for families to see if you're likely to be eligible for need-based aid, or if you need to look for merit aid instead. If your expected family contribution is higher than the cost of college, then you are not eligible for need-based aid.
Okay.
And it's possible that you could be eligible for need-based aid some places and not others. You know, for example, if your expected family contribution is $35,000, no need-based aid at public colleges, yes, need-based aid at private colleges.
Gotcha.
Once you've got that, then you have to figure out if the colleges you're interested in award scholarships on the basis of need. Some do, many don't. Some will meet some of your needs, some will meet all of your needs. So it's from there, it's a little bit of a manual process. If the student aid estimator tells you you are not eligible for need-based aid anywhere, then you want to look for merit aid. And merit scholarships are awarded by colleges and universities for the purpose of attracting the students they want to attract. And it's really important for students they want to attract. So Harvard, for example, does not need to do anything to attract students with 8.0 GPA.
Right. I know.
They don't care.
Right.
Those, you know,
they're there already.
Yeah. On the other hand, my son is going to the University of Arizona, and he got a very generous merit scholarship because he had a really good ACT score, even though his GPA wasn't fabulous. So up to you to, you know, find the schools that match you for merit. And I think we have this misperception that scholarships go to poor kids and athletes. Mm-hmm. Merit scholarships really go to students across the spectrum. You know, like I said, public colleges often automatically grant them if your grades are above a certain GPA. Other schools have different criteria. You may have to apply, you may not. Yeah. And merit can be funny things. So for example, a lot of smaller colleges would like to have students from all 50 states. And it's possible if you come from a small state that isn't where that college is, you might be the only person from your state who's applying there, and they really, really want you to go.
Wow.
So you can.
The best tool for figuring out merit scholarships, well, really any kind of scholarship, is every college is required to have a net price calculator on their website. And with a net price calculator, you punch in your information and it will tell you what students like you paid to go to that college last year.
Okay.
And you'll see the numbers will vary tremendously. I mean, we got results for my daughter who was interested in private schools. We got results ranging from $11,000 a year to $81,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And from the net price calculator, you can then go to the school's financial aid website too and see if there are additional scholarships, because net price calculators can only show you stuff that's granted automatically. There may be additional scholarships that are available to you that you might have to apply for. So for example, one of the schools my daughter was interested in, the net price calculator showed it was out of her budget. She found another scholarship that she was eligible for that would have brought it to within our budget. Okay. So we said, okay, it's okay to apply for that school. The third big pool of scholarships is outside scholarships. These are ones that, if your high school has an awards night and they give out, 6,000 different scholarships there, those are kind of those. Groups like Rotary, all sorts of local organizations do them. They're big websites like FastWeb and Scholarly that have tons and tons of scholarships. But I found students tend to have the best luck going to their high school, college, and career center, and almost all of them will have a binder that's got all the different local scholarships in there. The thing that's great about local scholarships is the pool of applicants is smaller than for the national scholarships. But if you're unsure where to go for these, like I said, college and career center at high school, but talk to the adults in your student's life, club sports coaches, teachers in a favorite class. My daughter found a great scholarship that her high school computer science teacher recommended that she apply for. And it's $5,000 a year plus a computer, plus a professional mentor every year. So that's been terrific. And because it wasn't through a big national database, she was part of a smaller pool of applicants and probably more likely to get accepted. Our high school has a scholarship for the tennis team. I mean, what are there, 12 people on the tennis team?
Yes.
Right. That's great.
So that's encouraging to look at and think they are out there with just a little bit of rooting around to find them.
Yeah, they're great. Out there. I would say those tend to be the smaller ones. So a typical merit award from a college itself might be $20,000 to $30,000. A typical outside scholarship is, $500 to $5,000.
Okay.
So those are ones that are more like you might be able to close the gap, reduce your borrowing type of thing from that versus something you can really build your college budget around.
Okay.
And there's no limit on the number of scholarships you can get, be outside merit or whatever. It's not like if you get one or two, then everyone looks at you and says, oh, they've got two, no more scholarships for them.
There is no limit. However, if you get need-based financial aid and you get an outside scholarship, they will offset your need-based financial aid by 50 cents on the dollar for those outside scholarships. So if you're a student with high need who is getting a big scholarship package from your school, it's probably not worth the effort to apply for, $500 scholarships because you're really only going to get $250.
Okay. For those. Okay.
Makes sense.
That's great.
Well, Anne, thank you so much for joining us today on the Streaking Show. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Congratulations on your book, How to Pay for College. I'll just hold it up there. Streakers, this is your workbook to help go to college. And really what you need to do is not only do this but also reach out to Anne, her website. Where could they go to reach you if they want more, or if they want to even employ you as a financial planner?
So my website is also howtopayforcollege.com.
Okay,
just
great.
To make things easy.
Yes.
That's way too easy.
Right?
Right. That's great. And any other social feeds that they reach out on? Do you keep a Twitter, a Pinterest, an Instagram?
I have a Facebook group, the College Financial Lady, which was my original name. My editor, publishing house, is like, that's ridiculous. No.
They're like, no, not going to happen.
Fix that. And then on Twitter, I'm Ann Garcia, CFP.
Okay, wonderful. So if you'd like to follow her in any of those places there, do so. Go out, buy her book, and your book's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold, basically?
Anywhere books are sold, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again so much. And Streakers, we hope that you take from this the financial planning streaks that you need in order to accomplish your goals and your aspirations. If you'd like to reach out to Jami or I, you can do that at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jami, Jami, at streakingmastery.com.
This conversation will be published on our YouTube channel, as well as you're listening to it on the podcast. Also, you can download the Streaking app and start taking note of and also tracking the streaks that you have for financial planning, and also share those streaks with everyone in the Streaking community. Well, thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Until we talk again,
keep streaking.
It's the little things that make a better you.